Welcome back to Metal Heroes Review, episode number 80. We are here reviewing episodes 19 through 24. Yep. Quite interesting to the episodes for these ones. Now, two of these episodes don't deal much with the main story, with the whole golden bird stuff. As a matter of fact, the family does not make an appearance. Also, if you're curious what's going on behind me, my nephew is playing Lego Jurassic World, and he's having a blast. Right, Oliver?
Yeah.
That's my nephew, Oliver. Little redhead, he's 6 years old. Alright, so, in these episodes, they're interesting to say the least. So, in the case of the first episode we're discussing here, episode number 19. This one basically, well, it's like, okay, so this one basically, it's like the kids just, well, they find their way to an aquarium, and they run into a guy who actually is no friend of their father's, who's known since like grade school. And when Mag Element runs, like, oh, it's the children of this guy. Okay. It's almost like he wasn't on the radar at this point, or just no one mentioned the golden bird. And the whole thing of this episode was convincing a samurai who was in prison for 900 years, that's like a sub, say, 800, for failing to defeat a guy who actually became the first emperor of Japan. Well, in this show anyways, but probably maybe with somebody else. Where he got in prison, and he lived so long because he got the power of a Mega Beast. And his whole thing, he wants to help him rule the 7 seas by converting dolphins into missiles. Well, mostly basically having fire missiles, basically from these little attachments that they're basically have to wear. And he has to train dolphins to do that, which of course something that probably the military and air fiction have tried to do for years, so like sea animals to basically just do these things, but usually they get kiboshed very quickly. The aquarium aspect is interesting, and I like the fact that we actually have an immortal samurai in here, which is quite nice. Well, eventually the samurai is defeated by Juspion by the very end of the episode, but it's a very interesting styled episode. I like the fact we actually have a backstory for him. The fact that, well, he actually see him fighting him. As what he looked like without the face mask on, don't know. It's just kind of weird, the fact that we actually have him fight a samurai, probably someone who should be dead, but who knows. Alright, moving on to episode number 20. This is Fall of the Kids once again, and the whole thing of this one is that get this, a infamous hitman is hired to kill Jaspion. He only appears as one episode. He just disappears, but he doesn't get killed. His whole thing, we get sort of like a bit of stock footage in this episode of like, oh, let's show off Jaspion's moves, his combat vehicles, which is basically his space wolf, his motorcycle, his gallon tank, which also forms a drill, and his spaceship, which transforms into a Megazord. Which he doesn't take on this episode. Nope, he does basically deal with the air too, no problem. He just shows up his weapons, his blaster, his plasma sword he uses, which is something that was carried out from the previous series. Which, of course, also Shirvani also used a plasma sword as well. Which, for some reason, Metallic didn't use a sword. Nope, his arm became a weapon because he was an android. One of like 2 I read basically in the whole franchise where the main character is an android. The other being one of the Heisei era ones where the lead character was, in fact, an android. So, it's a quite interesting episode. Probably by far the best written episode I've seen so far for the whole series. Where he's like, he's basically just trying to wear him out so he can take him out. And then, of course, they tell him, of course, a monster. Yeah, which, of course, said, no, I do not want help from you guys. I want to do it myself. And then the monster shows up, which happens to have a cross on it. And, of course, basically, a little fun fact, the episode air date was actually on the cross, which quite interesting the fact that the creators basically decided to do that. But the monster's defeated, and of course the hitman gets away. not killed. He just gets nearly burned by the monster. He goes back to his spaceship, which is a coffin, and goes back to space. Never seen it in the series, but really good episode. As in the case of 21, this is basically a filler episode, kind of, where it's like, okay, so we have this kid who just happens to come across this light, who basically practices near this lighthouse, and then one moment he sees 2 lighthouses in the place. That's because basically Matt Gallion decided to use it as a base. Yes, seriously. And this whole thing is about improving his baseball skills. And the whole thing with Matt Gallion, he wants to summon a mega base from space to disrupt the electromagnetic field of like the planet and of course all the electronics across Japan. Of course, the monster is eventually destroyed, though it does have a good side effect for the kid. He gets improved his baseball skills. Becomes a better pitcher because of it. I like the whole suspense and like the fact this episode, I can't think they actually spent some money on this episode, which is quite interesting. In the case 22, we bring in the teacher of one of the characters. A woman by the name of Enchantress Kurtita, who is Brema. She is one of Matt Gallion's bodyguards, the one who uses illusions. And her whole thing is that she brainwashes the daughter to get the Juspion. And apparently her true form is that she's a spider. Okay. Well, becomes a spider, which reminds me a lot of the spider creature from one of the Godzilla movies. Eventually, of course, the creature is destroyed, and eventually, well, because the fact it takes form of that, the source was taken out too. In the case of 23, this is a very not a terrible episode per se. It's more like it reminds me a little bit of like episode 2 of the series, where the Mega Beast actually is a gentle creature, but sadly put, Juspion has to kill it because it went berserk because of Saint Garth, of course, and it has a very small connection to this father and daughter duo, who up on a show the fact that he actually tamed the Mega Beast, which is quite interesting. And sadly put, basically goes over a couple times, the creature just dies. Sadly. In the case of like episode 24. By the way, also I think it was this episode we briefly see the Number family. Yeah. Next episode, they don't play a role in this episode. Of course, they mention, oh yeah, we're looking on board. No, we just stay here. Next episode is about money. Money. Basically, it's a standard, villain plot that's reused both in Kamen Rider and Super Sentai. Convert the youth into henchmen. And this time, I'm not using kids this time. This time, I'm using, well, more like young adults. Which, more like adults-ish, per se, very young adults. I find that interesting. About that little aspect, because it's something different. They don't do this very often. And this whole subplot about one of the sister basically just asking Juspion to help her look for her sister who has been, and the whole thing is like they're stealing these kids' money, and they haven't joined their force to steal stuff for this Mega Beast who's an alter. Yes. And of course, basically, Juspion creates creature. At one point, the girl, the Yoko, that's her name, she gets consumed by the creature. Well, basically, put the creature's belly, but still alive, but in a cage somehow, despite the fact that, it's a Mega Beast's belly. And this is the 3rd time in the series that Juspion's gone inside of Mega Beast and get someone out. First time he did this back in episode, I think it was like 8, I think it was 7, I think it was. He did this, 7 or 8, and he did it like a couple more times after that. This is one of them. But good episodes. I don't think any of these episodes were bad per se. It's just that, like good writing, very interesting stories. The only one I didn't really like very much was probably episode 23. I like the whole suspense aspect. It just the stuff with the kid probably wasn't very interesting. But yeah, good episodes. Yep. So yeah, that's particularly a particular view. Please be sure to like, comment, subscribe, turn notifications, and dislike button. Next time we have a Comic Corner, and then it's on to Spirit Chronicles. Okay, see you. Bye.